Ever since 2022, when CFMOTO first came on the real motorcycle scene here in the US, they brought with them a lineup of motorcycles that appealed to a ton of riders. Now, today, I have two of their more popular motorcycles, the 300SS and the 450SS. These two bikes are fantastic options for guys looking for lower CC bikes, but that begs the question, which one is right for you? So today I've pitted both of these motorcycles against each other with the goal of, at the end of the video, I want to be able to tell you guys which of these bikes is better suited for all the different guys out there looking for these bikes, because when you're buying a new motorcycle, you don't want to get the wrong one. These things are investments and we want to make sure we get the right one. So we're here to help you guys make that choice, and without further ado, let's get into this thing. Also guys, I should go ahead and just say it from the get-go. I don't think I'm sick, but my voice is just not all there today. So we're gonna suffer through together. Let's get the video started.
Player 1. Player 2.
Now guys, both of these motorcycles are great in their own right, but do you know what's even greater? The fact that you can win both of them. Yes, I said win, and yes, I said both of them. For you guys that are uninitiated, we have a website called WBRGarage.com that we have been running for like 7 years, and we give motorcycles away every single year. So lucky for you guys, we are currently giving away 2 of them, which means you have double the chances to win. This does not happen very often. Oh my God, go while you can. You guys can enter in a ton of different ways. The website will walk you through all how to do that. I'm not gonna waste your time here, but if you wanna win them, you still have some time left, but not much. So jump to it, and while you guys do that, I'm gonna get into reviewing these motorcycles.
Round 1. Fight.
All right guys, so let's start off with the design of these bikes, and this is where CFMOTO is going to come in really strong. CFMOTO has really strong design characteristics for their SS models, and I think everything they're making, even all of their other models, have really good designs. And we've heard this from you guys too. You guys love the looks. What I love the most about the CFMOTO bikes, specifically the SS line, is that CFMOTO is not doing that normal thing where they give you an okay looking low CC bike, and then as you get bigger in the CCs of that style bike, the cooler ones are always the big CC. I think the 450SS is one of the coolest looking bikes on the market right now, and it's a 450cc. So I love that they're throwing all the design and the cool factor onto their lower CC bikes. We've got these really sleek tails on these bikes. We've got just really nice lines, LED lighting. We even have winglets, which is gonna be the major differentiator as far as styling between the 450SS and the 300SS. Now, it's a 450, and you're not really gonna be hitting speeds that's really gonna be activating that downforce that winglets would hypothetically give you, but it is kinda neat that they offered something that you typically only see in like high-level race bikes, and they put it into the design of their 450 bike. So I think little additions like that are really neat, and I appreciate the guy over at CFMOTO designing these. They're doing a phenomenal job, and I love that. So as far as the design goes, from what I've seen from you guys, it's kind of a split. Some of you guys prefer the 300SS, some prefer the 450. I like the lines on the 450 and think it just overall looks like a more complete package of a motorcycle. So I personally go with that. But if I'm gonna zoom out from my personal opinions, I would honestly call the design game a tie, because both bikes look absolutely phenomenal. And I don't think a lot of you guys are gonna be making a purchasing decision based on the slight little differences in the looks between the bikes.
Round 2. Fight.
Now guys, while the design might be a tie on these bikes, the thing that's not are the specs. So we'll start with the 300SS. This guy has got a 292cc single engine in it, and that's gonna be good for about 29.5 horsepower and just about 20 foot-pounds of torque. Now those numbers aren't gonna be anything absolutely crazy, but in a motorcycle that's only weighing 364 pounds, they are more than plenty to have a great time on it, and I will show you guys that later in the video when I take it for a ride. Now let's look at the 450. So guys, coming over to the 450, you're gonna see a pretty big jump in the stats on this bike, especially compared to the 300. So the 450SS is gonna have a parallel twin style engine at 450 cc's. That's gonna be good for about 50 horsepower and 28.8 foot-pounds of torque, and all of that inside of a package that only weighs 370 pounds. So when you compare that to the 300, you're getting a pretty decent horsepower jump, you're getting a pretty modest torque jump, but the weight is not really changing. It's like 7 pounds. So all that combined is really gonna make this bike feel a significant amount faster than that 300SS. That could be a good thing, or that could be a bad thing, depending on the style router you are. Now guys, of course, weight and power aren't the only important specs on motorcycles. Both of these bikes have more stuff than most of the other competitive bikes in their classes. They've got ABS on the front and the rear, which I absolutely love for a lower CC bike, especially for beginners. They've got beautiful TFT displays, which are gonna be kind of shocking when you actually see them for the first time when you compare the dashes to other bikes, especially that 450 dash. And they also have LED lighting all over the motorcycle. These are all not necessities except for the ABS, but they're just really nice to have, and I feel like it adds to the riding experience that I have on both bikes. Let's jump now to the price.
Round 3, fight.
So let's talk about price, which is typically a pretty big factor when it comes to CFMOTO bikes, because typically these bikes are a little lower cost than competitors in the market. The 300SS is gonna come in at $4,599. Now keep in mind, that's for the brand new 2025 model, not a used 2022 model. So if you guys are looking to save a little money, you can definitely get one cheaper than that. But $4,599, I feel like is a pretty good price for somebody getting a motorcycle who doesn't want to have a bike that's had a previous owner before, and it makes it really approachable for new riders. I know when I started riding, bro, I did not have the cash to be, getting anything more than that. I think my first bike was like $5 grand. So that is right in the price point that I kind of associate with people starting riding. So really good price for a bike that's brand new. Now, if you guys have your heart set on the 450SS, I totally get it. I love this bike too. It is gonna come at a price tag of $5,699, again, for the 2025 model, not the 2023 or 24 that this is. That is going to be an $1,100 price jump over the 300SS. Now, that might seem like a lot of money with these price tags to do a jump that big, but I honestly feel like with everything you're getting with the 450SS, it is still gonna be a phenomenal value for that price. Alrighty guys, now that we have a good understanding of what both of these bikes offer, let's take a ride on both, and that way I can tell you guys how I feel about each of the riding experiences on these bikes. So guys, first thing I want to talk about with the 300SS is comfort. This is a sport class motorcycle, which typically is going to be a pretty uncomfortable bike. You're going to be leaned way far over. But as you guys can see from that camera, even when I've got both hands on the handlebars, I'm only slightly forward. So I do end up liking this position a lot. And with the suspension being so soft, the bike does a really good job of picking up a lot of the little road bumps, making it for a more comfortable ride. Now, one of the cons with having a more comfortable ride is that with a soft suspension, the bike doesn't do the best job when you're in a really technical area and you're throwing the bike back and forth. Because of the soft suspension, it reacts slower. So with it reacting slower, it means you jump around less, but it's not as easy to get this thing going, turns and stuff like that. So there are definitely better bikes to do that. For most of you guys, I don't think that's going to be really that big of a deal, because the kind of technical riding I'm talking about is like some serious stuff. So I don't really see a load of people picking this bike up wanting to do that style of riding. But I did want to note it just in case that's something you are looking into. Now, let's talk about power, because I know with a 300cc bike, a lot of people are going to be wondering, is it powerful enough to ride around? And in my experience, absolutely. For the city areas, this bike is more than ample, especially if you're, really getting on it. Now, for the highway, I would describe this bike as being highway capable, but not enjoyable. For a single style engine, it's gonna have to be rotating a lot to get the revs it needs at this size to get up to highway speed. So This bike is not going to be ideal for highway. You're going to have some vibration there, but if it's a little highway jaunt here or there, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. I will say this bike is pretty fun to just wring its absolute neck out. You guys have probably heard me use the term, it's more fun to ride a slow bike fast than fast bike slow. Very much so with this bike. It's almost more enjoyable. Actually, no. It is 100% more enjoyable to just full throttle this thing and send the rev limiter all the way to the red line. So if you've got one of these, you're picking one up, make sure to just, ride it to its full potential. Now, a couple slightly negatives with this bike that I've realized over, spending all this time on it is the lever feel on the clutch side is relatively light. And I prefer a slightly heavier clutch than this. So that's not really a pro to me. One of the good things about a lighter clutch is if you're stuck in traffic, it doesn't take a lot of energy to, pull the clutch in. So your hand won't get quite as tired. Now, another thing I'm not a huge fan of with the 300SS is the braking. I keep finding myself in situations where the front brake is not dangerous, but I really wish I got more bite out of it. Like, let's get it all the way braked here. You gotta really pull that lever in to start getting any noticeable braking feel. So I would like to see that, and that's after I've ridden the bike. We've got what, 600 over 600 miles on this bike, and the brakes just haven't really felt like they've bit in yet, and I feel like they should have by now. But I keep finding myself being like, I want more braking while riding this bike. If I was to give this bike a your best stat situation, I would definitely say the maneuverability is where you're going to get the most out of this bike. It's just so light and light on the handlebars, and you can just throw this thing anywhere you want. I think that's really the key to this bike, and a manageable amount of power that's not really going to get you in trouble. I feel like that's the sweet spot with this bike. So in the city, it's going to be great, no problem at all. Anything outside of that, you'll start noticing the limitations of the bike. You go to a technical road, you go to the mountains, you go to a track or something like that. That's where you'll start seeing it. All right, guys, so let's play a game of let's justify $1,100, because that's essentially what we're doing in this video, right? This bike costs $1,100 more than the 300. Should you get this, and why? Now, the first thing we got to talk about is just, it's kind of hard to quantify, but the overall touch and feel of this bike seems a much higher quality than the 300SS. You wouldn't think that, but there was something different in the 450 creation than the 300, to where this feels like a much more solid motorcycle. I don't know if that's all the little components added together that kind of make one full thing, if that makes sense. Now, power-wise, I know you guys are going to be like, oh, 300 to 450, that's really not that big of a number. It is hard to describe how much better not only the power is on this bike, but how the power comes on. It's really punchy down low, and the bike is actually fun to send all the way through the rev range. And you actually have power on tap with this bike, where with the 300 you are having to kind of find the power sometimes. With the 450 you just have it and can use it. So I hope that description makes sense. The only problem is with great power comes great responsibility. This bike does have enough power to wheelie the bike. You do have to be careful. You can't just lollygag with this bike. You could get yourself in trouble. Now, as far as suspension goes, I don't think this is the best suspension by far. There's actually a suspension we're getting put on this bike. If you guys have been following the build and all this kind of episodes, it's one of our future episodes. We're going to be updating the suspension. So is the suspension great stock? It's okay. It's fine for 85% of what most of you guys are going to want to do, but I want to really get this thing on a track and have a good time, and for that I do think an added suspension is necessary.
But I will say the suspension difference from the 300SS to this is massive. This is a lot stiffer, a lot more easy to get the bike over and feel confident getting the bike over. Very much prefer this suspension. It probably ends up being a little less comfortable than the 300 just because of due to the fact that it's not as soft, but this feels like a sportier suspension, a far more sportier suspension. So the next little facet we can talk about with the 450 is the buttons. The buttons have a much more premium feel, maybe not much more, but they have a significant feel difference in the good direction as compared to the 300. The 300 buttons, you're not getting as much press on them, and they just don't feel as high quality as the 450 does. Now, I'm not saying this thing feels like a Ducati or a Triumph or anything like that, but we're just comparing. Now, I did talk about the clutch on the 300SS, and we're not going to be that much different here on the 450. Both bikes, I find, have a relatively light clutch. Again, not my most favorite thing, but something I can definitely look past. It's not that big of a deal. The vast majority of smaller CC bikes have a very light clutch just due to the engine, you know, style and size. So it's nothing that is a shortcoming of the bike, really, more of a personal preference thing. Now, as far as body positions, I will note that the 450SS, I am leaned up more. I don't know if you guys can tell from that camera, but I am leaned up a little more on this bike. Now, again, like with everything, there's pros and cons, right? So the pro is you are in a more aggressive stance, and it is going to make it easy for you to lean off the motorcycle, especially riding in more technical areas, which I definitely recommend you guys do on this bike. It is so good at that. But one of the issues with that is that look at the power of that parallel twin, dude. It just easily pulls you out of a turn. It's these small technical roads, this bike eats that stuff up. I'm going to proceed slowly because I don't want to run into the back of a truck. That's one of the crazy things about this bike is it's only a few pounds heavier than the 300SS with all of that power difference. So it can just slay a turn, and it has all that power, same weight, and it stays just as maneuverable. So typically you have to sacrifice maneuverability the bigger you go on the bikes. This is not one of those situations, so it's a little rare, honestly. So a few more creature comfort stuff. The dash on the 300 is not bad. I wouldn't complain about it at all. But on the opposite side of that, the dash on this 450, as you guys can see down there, is primo. It looks fantastic. It has such high quality. You are going to be very surprised when you see the dash when you first get on this bike. And the dash can change. It has different modes, you know, so it can look different. I always just leave it in the mode that I have it in because I got no problems with it. And I should mention that this bike does have app. It does have app connectivity. So you can connect to the CFMOTO app or whatever it's called. You can see the fuel on your bike and where your bike is, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, guys, CFMOTO has created just a small little gem of a bike with this 450, and I think that's why generally I recommend it over the 300, just because it checks so many boxes. Oh yeah, it goes without saying, if you're going to do anything on the highway, this is going to be far more capable than the 300. That extra power on top of the different style engine is going to be a godsend. So if you're looking at commuting, you know, 30 minutes to an hour every day for work, and you're kind of split between the bikes, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, you know.
All right, guys, we've gone for the ride, and it's time to answer the question, do you go with the 450SS or do you go with the 300SS? Now, for the majority of you guys out there, I'm gonna push you to the 450SS for a few reasons. One, it's one of my favorite bikes on the market right now, period. I just love the looks. I love everything about this motorcycle. I also am in love with the 450cc parallel twin that CFMOTO put in here, and I am so excited that CFMOTO is going to be putting that engine in a lot more models coming up. I think it's a phenomenal engine. I can't wait to have it in more stuff on the market. The power in the 450 is also a phenomenal amount. One, for experienced riders, I think it's a plenty for us to have fun. I love riding this bike and I don't feel like it needs more power, but it's not too much power where a new rider couldn't get on it safely. And I feel like in a new rider situation, if they got the 450, you have at least years that you could be riding this motorcycle before you ever even consider upgrading, if you need to. Because if we're gonna be honest, this bike can do absolutely everything you need to do for riding, at least here in the US, where we ride fast to shit, where you probably should. Now guys, just because I recommend most of you guys get the 450 doesn't mean that's right for everybody. There are a few people that I would push the 300 on. First off is somebody that is getting into riding and has absolutely zero experience on how to ride a motorcycle. If you're one of those people, the throttle on the 450 is a little bit stronger than that 300 and could easily get you in trouble if you didn't release your clutch well. So if you're somebody that has absolutely no experience and you're a little timid about how to use your throttle and your clutch together to make a smooth ride, then the 300 is going to be a safer bet for you because it has less power. It'll be easier to learn those very essential skills of riding on. The next person that I'm going to push the 300 on is somebody that's very cost conscious. If every dollar matters to you, then $1,100 is going to be a huge price difference between these motorcycles. And me personally, I would much rather somebody grab the 300SS and have that $1,100 to buy the correct style gear than spending their entire budget on the 450 and having to ride around in a crappy helmet and a t-shirt. Please wear your gear. I know gear is expensive, but you gotta add it into your budget when you're talking about what your first bike is going to be. So yeah, if you're very cost conscious, go with that 300, save the 1,100 bucks and put that towards gear that's gonna allow you to ride safely. Guys, at the end of the day, whichever one of these bikes you pick, I think you guys are gonna have a phenomenal time on. The 450SS just has a little special place in my heart. After riding over 1,000 miles on it, I've just really enjoyed that motorcycle. And I'm not gonna lie, whenever we get to the very end of our giveaway and somebody wins that 450SS, I'm gonna be kind of sad because I've really enjoyed that motorcycle. As a note, guys, that giveaway is got only so much time left. So if you are interested in winning one of our bikes, go to WBRGarage.com. It's the best way to support this channel, and we really appreciate any of you guys that go over there. But like I said, the website's gonna tell you everything you need on how to enter. If you guys get to this point in the video, you're in the outro crew, let me know with OC in your comment down below after you like the video. Let me know which bike you would pick and why it's right for you. Guys, I'm Chaseontwowheels. You guys go out there and ride safe, and I'll see you in the next video where hopefully my voice is back. We'll find out. Bye.